You're about to watch Caving in Missouri, a program developed by the Missouri Department of Conservation Outreach and Education Branch. Caving in Missouri was developed for audiences of all ages. Please visit us at our website, mdc.mo.gov. Hi, my name's Shelby.
I'm Kylie.
And today we're at the Repudium Cave Visitor Center, and we're going to go in the cave today, and you guys are going to tag along. But before we go in, we want to go over all the things you need to take with you when you're going in to explore cave.
So the first thing that we have out is going to be, we each have 3 sources of light. So my first source I have attached to my helmet, it's a headlamp. My second and third sources are actually just different variations of lanterns, and then Shelby also has 3 light sources. It's very important, you always want to make sure you have more light than you need.
The second thing we have with us are helmets. Helmets are super important and they should fit snugly. Caves are completely made out of rock, and head versus rock, rock is always going to win. And when you wear a helmet, your headlamp stays nicely on it, just like Kylie's, so that you're always able to have a direct line of sight.
And then the last most important thing that you'll see that we have set out is we each have our own first aid packs. This is very important whenever you're traveling, even if you're with a friend.
One last thing is water. You should always take water into a cave with you, and you should always pack more water in than you think you'll need just in case something happens.
So both sources of water are completely fine. You'll see that Shelby decided to bring a water bottle today, and then I brought what's similar to a Camelback. Both sources are fine as long as we have more than we need.
Yeah. And before we head in, Kylie's gonna put her hair up in a ponytail because you should always wear your hair up when going into a cave. And we'll see you guys out on the trail.
Bye. Guys, so Shelby and I are actually walking the trail now towards the cave, but before we get much further, we're gonna send a quick text to our friend Kelsey just so she can know when to expect us out. It's always important to alert a member that's not going into the cave with you when you expect to be out of the cave, especially since they need to make sure that you're not either injured or lost. So the proper people to alert if your friends haven't responded to you is either going to be a park ranger, local authorities, or even just the property manager. That way they can check in and make sure everything's okay or come out looking for you. So right now I'm going to send a quick text to Kelsey and then we'll be on our way.
We made it to the cave! Yay! Woo! Kylie's gonna go in first. There's the entrance to the cave. Kylie's gonna go down first. Don't worry though, she'll turn back and wave.
Alright guys, I'm going into the cave now. As you can see, it's nice and dark in here. This is why we have light.
Wow, this cave is so much bigger than it looks like it is from the outside. Alright guys, I'm almost into the bat cove. Now in this particular cave, there are no bats. Bats do not live in Repudium Cave, but in caves across the country, this would be perfect bat habitat, lots of rock formations. It's obviously very, very dark and it's out of the way. These rock formations, Kylie's gonna tell us all about them later. Just give me a minute and I'm gonna show us why we need 3 sources of light at all times. Okay, I know you can't see me very well because of my headlamp, but I'm going to turn off my headlamp and my phone and I'm going to cover up the back of the camera and I'm going to show you what total darkness looks like. The reason caves are in total darkness is because no sunlight can reach where we are because there's no opening close enough to the surface for the sun to reach. Okay, I'm going to count to 3 and then I'm going to flip off my headlamp and we're going to sit in total darkness for a few seconds. Ready? 1, 2, 3. So this is total darkness. Obviously you can't see anything. You can't even see the hand in front of your face. So as you can imagine, navigating a cave in total darkness would be nearly impossible. So I'm going to turn my headlamp back on and then we're going to go over all the sources of light. All right, we're back in total darkness. I'm going to turn on my headlamp for light source number 1. Then I'm going to turn on light source number 2, my caving lantern. There we go. So much brighter already. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna turn on my 3rd source of light. And this cove in the cave went from total darkness to being able to see all of the cove with all three sources of light. So that's pretty awesome. Now Kylie is going to be here any minute, so I'll see you when she gets here and we'll learn all about bats. Hey Kylie.
Wow, this looks like a perfect habitat for bats.
You're absolutely right, Kylie. If bats lived in Repudium Cave, this would be absolutely perfect habitat for them, but they don't. So we don't have to worry about disturbing them and we're allowed to come into the cave. But I did want to let you guys in on some really cool bat facts today, if that's okay with you. In Missouri, 3 of our most common bats are the gray bat, the big brown bat, and the little brown bat. As the name suggests, the big brown bat is one of our larger bats along with the gray bat, and one of our smaller bats is the little brown bat.
Hey Shelby, do we have to worry about any vampire bats in this cave?
Wow, Kylie, thank you so much for asking that. That's a great question. Vampire bats do not suck blood, and vampire bats don't even live in Missouri. In fact, they don't live in the United States at all. Instead, they're only found in South America, and even the vampire bats in South America don't suck blood. They do eat blood, though. They eat cow's blood, and the way they get it is they make tiny little bites on the back of a cow, and they lick up the little bit of blood that comes out. So vampire bats do not suck blood. They do not like humans, so that is something we definitely do not have to worry about. So we just talked about vampire bats and how they don't actually suck any blood and how they don't live in North America. But you might be thinking, so what do bats eat then? So bats eat bugs, and they eat a lot of bugs. I'm talking 2,000 bugs a night. Yes, 2,000. To put that into perspective, they eat a quarter of their body weight every night. So let's say you weigh 100 pounds. To eat a quarter of your body weight, you would need to eat 25 pounds. Let's say you went out to dinner and you got a kids meal at a restaurant with a kids meal burger in it and fries. You would need to eat 100 kids meals, burgers, and fries to eat the equivalent of 25 pounds or a quarter of your body weight. So when I say bats eat a lot of food every night, I mean it. 2,000 bugs. I can barely eat 2 kids meals if I hadn't eaten the whole rest of the day. There's no way on earth I could eat 100. It's just crazy how many bugs a bat eats in a single day. Okay, we're back in total darkness because bats live in total darkness. They hunt in total darkness because they are nocturnal. And so you're probably thinking to yourself, if bats live in the dark and they hunt in the dark and they don't have lanterns and flashlights and headlamps like we do, how on earth do they get all these bugs every night? Let me tell you, it's pretty nifty. They use what's called echolocation. So echolocation is sending out a sound wave that's so high-pitched us humans can't hear it. But the way it works is it's literally a wave of sound, just like that. And so my hand is going to be a bat and the sound wave, and this hand is going to be a bug. So this bat is flying in the air over here, right? And he lets out a sound wave. And the sound wave hits a bug and then bounces back to the bat. And then the bat flies closer, and the sound waves keep getting bounced back and forth until finally the bat reaches the insect, eats the insect right up, and then the bat does this over and over and over again all night long until he's eaten a quarter of his body weight, 2,000 bugs, all of that fun stuff. And then when he is completely full, daylight is starting to come up, and he's like, well, gotta get home to my cave. And so he flies back to his cave where he sleeps all day, and then he wakes up at night and he does the same thing over and over again. All right, Kylie, I think we've learned enough about bats today. I'm gonna pack up my lights and I'll meet you over at the bear den.
Sounds good. While we're here, I wanted to take a minute to talk about these cool formations. So what you see is called a stalactite and a stalagmite. These are very common in caves around Missouri. These are caused by the mineral calcite as it dissolves through the limestone layers of the cave. These grow very, very slowly over time. They can only grow about 1 cubic inch per year. And if you can't picture what that means, Just imagine you're holding an ice cube in your hand and watching it slowly melt away. The layers left behind in your hand by the ice cube represent the layers that form through these stalactites and stalagmites over the years. It can take thousands and thousands of years for a stalactite to get this large. If we were to come back in another 1,000 years or so, we might actually see that these two had formed together to make a column, which would be pretty cool to see. If you're ever confused on what's a stalactite versus a stalagmite, just remember, a stalactite has to hold on tight to the ceiling so it doesn't fall, and a stalagmite might reach the ceiling someday.
All right, we're crawling back out of the bat area, so we'll meet you at the bear den in a few minutes.
Welcome to the bear den. Here, we've laid out a bear pelt for you to see. This is a juvenile male black bear, which is commonly found in southern Missouri. Although he might look quite large, he's actually fairly small for a bear of his type. Males can get up to about 500 pounds. Can you believe that? You might be wondering, what does something so big eat in a day? And the answer to that is a combination of fruits and animals. So bears are known to eat different styles of berries, seeds, and what other vegetation that they can get their paws on. But they can also live off of animals, such as crickets, rodents, and even birds.
Hey guys, so I just checked the time and we have time to go to one more spot, but before we go, I wanted to tell you a really fun bear fact. So in the 1890s, all bears in the state of Missouri were thought to have been killed off, which is really sad, but in the 1960s, we started seeing bears again. Then in 2010, we did a large-scale DNA testing of the genetic makeup of the bears in the state, and we found that some of the bears were direct descendants of the bears that we thought had disappeared in 1890. That means that these bears had become world champion hide-and-go seekers. Isn't that so cool? All right, I just wanted to let you know, and I'll see you guys at the next spot. See ya!
All right, guys, we've made it to our final location that we want to show you today. It's actually a little nook that we found on our way out of the cave.
So here in this cove, we found some really amazing cave history. So Kylie's gonna start us off with some Native American history.
Hey guys, did you know that Native Americans have been using caves all around Missouri for over 10,000 years? They not only use the caves for shelter, but would also use it for its valuable resources, such as water and other materials that they could use to build tools. Native Americans were known for leaving cave drawings behind. These cave drawings weren't just for artistic value. Often they used symbols which had meaning. At the top of our cave, we see that there's a big red circle. This circle is an indication of life. If the circle was left not filled in, that meant that there was water or usable running water in the cave. If the circle was filled in, like ours is, that meant that they had no access to running or usable water. Below our circle, we see an artistic depiction of a hunter hunting a bear. The bear paw being in the upright position means that the bear was deceased, and the hunter on the left of it shows that the bear was actually killed by a person. Often Native Americans would kill bears, use them for their meat, but then also use the rest of their body as a valuable resource. And then, if we go around our cave, we see that there's handprints. Although most of the art that they did in the caves actually had meaning, the only conclusion that we can draw on handprints is that this is their way of wanting to be remembered. How cute!
Native Americans weren't the only people who used caves in Missouri. Starting in the 1720s, a Spanish explorer named Hernando de Soto discovered that many of the caves in Missouri contain a mineral called saltpeter. Saltpeter is useful because it can be used to make black powder or gunpowder. So for nearly 100 years, De Soto's company and many just like his mined Missouri caves for its saltpeter supplies. Another really cool use of Missouri caves started popping up in the 1840s. This is when beverage making companies started storing their beverages in the caves. The reason they did this is because caves in Missouri stay around 60 degrees year-round, basically making them a giant refrigerator, and keeping things in cold temperatures helps them last longer. This is a practice that can still be found today in many places in Missouri, so beverage makers today are still storing their beverages in caves. I'm gonna put a picture up on the screen that shows you what caves filled with barrels of beverages look like. So up on the screen, here it is. Isn't that so cool? They built racks and everything for these barrels to sit on. Like I said, they were basically just giant refrigerators. So now we're going to jump forward to the early 1900s. In the early 1900s, caving became a huge nationwide sport. Caving clubs were popping up all across the country, and these men and women would go into the caves and they explored them. Some of these caves had never been explored before, others hadn't been explored in thousands of years. And you have to realize in the early 1900s, these people did not have flashlights and lanterns like we have. Their only source of light was candle-lit lanterns. Could you imagine? So they also didn't have special caving clothes like we have now. So especially the women, most of the time they would be exploring their caves in their nice dresses. I could not imagine how challenging it would be to explore a cave crawling all over in a dress. So behind me, we have an example of one of the caving clubs that might have been exploring back in the early 1900s. So this caving club in particular referred to themselves as the Fearless 15. So right at the top, you can see the year 1925. So that's the year that this caving club first found the cave. Again, they called themselves the Fearless 15. And this is a really common occurrence in caves across the country. These caving clubs would take in a piece of charcoal and write their names, the year, and their caving club names because these brave young men and women wanted to be remembered forever as the brave souls who went into these caves for the first time. And again, as you can see on the screen, modern-day caving has become quite a sport with its own specialty gear, including helmets, clothing, and footwear. Caving has also become a sport that as long as you're willing to be covered in mud head to toe and a little cold, just about anyone can take part in.
Now that everyone's all excited about going out and caving, I just want to remind you, we ask you please never ever touch the walls inside of the cave. Touching the walls actually lets your oils of your hands stop the growth.
And this is really important because as Kylie said earlier about the stalagmites and stalactites, those grow every single year and eventually hopefully form a column. But even the cave drawings that we found today, those are historical documents. They are super, super important to remember the history of our state and these caves, and we don't want to touch them and make them wash away. All right, guys, today's been such an absolutely amazing time. It's about time to go outside to meet our friend Kelsey, so we're gonna head out. Kylie's gonna text her, and we'll see you at the cave entrance. All right, Kylie's coming out. We found her. We survived. Woo! Woo!